What's up, everybody, and welcome to Marvel Chat University, your place for all things Marvel. And my name is Drew, and I'm joined by Raul.
What's up, everybody?
And here we are. We're on episode, 4 so far? Finally, here we are. WandaVision has come to a close. The first season of our favorite show, WandaVision, that we're going to watch so many seasons of. Finally, the season finale was yesterday. And we skipped over to the penultimate episode just due to timing. So our previous episode, we were kind of forecasting what we think is going to come after. And honestly, I don't think this episode has changed too much about how I feel about what could be next for the Marvel Universe or the Marvel Cinematic Universe overall. But we're going to talk today about how WandaVision wrapped up, kind of recap the whole series as a whole, and think about what it could mean going forward for the Cinematic Universe, and really dig into some questions and concerns that we have coming off of WandaVision. So I thought we would just kick it off with, we could just drop any random thing here. And I think, you know what, let's just start simple with boner. I need to get your reaction here.
That was a letdown. You know, it was like a really big tease, similar to the one, I know we were having a conversation earlier, like they did with Mandalorian, not the Mandalorian. Wow.
Yep. So and it's funny because when I brought up the Mandarin thing, I almost said Mandalorian, and when I thought about that, it's because I was watching a thing where they said the Mandalorian and then they corrected themselves. I don't know why that's.
Wait till there.
Yeah. And the Mandarin fake out in Iron Man 3. That's what you're talking about.
It was a good fake out. I mean, they really built us up to think that this guy maybe had some connection to the other universe.
All the trailers had him. All those.
And then his character was so weak too. Once he kind of once the necklace was ripped off, he's like, "No, please don't hurt me." I'm So it was a big fake out, but I still felt like he did what he was supposed to do. Add that excitement, that lore, that what if, all those questions, and then fake out.
For what the whole series was about was her dealing with grief. His character was necessary.
Absolutely.
Did it need to be Evan Peters? Probably not. Was it Evan Peters because, hey, we can use Evan Peters because we have that now? Maybe. And that, so from the perspective of like, hey, you know what would be fun? If we have Pietro, but it's not quite Pietro. So you're like, what's this about? And instead of just using some random guy, we use Evan Peters. That'll fuck everybody up, right? You know, I mean,
it's kind of frustrating though, because if we think about farther down the road, just looking at Evan Peters, the talent, we kind of miss out now because he's already this Ralph Boner guy who at this point I feel like we'll never see again.
You know, speaking of talent, I was thinking about this yesterday, and if we had some kind of legion of fervent listeners that had a way to communicate with us, I think they all would have shot me in the face, because I remember when we were trying to figure out who's going to be the cameo, and I recently was just thinking, actually like last night, that I dropped... who did I say? I said Anthony Hopkins, who was fucking Thor's dad. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if like Anthony Hopkins was maybe the person that Vision wanted to work with? And then I was like, oh wait, yeah, that's fucking Odin. I'm an idiot.
No, but at the same token, I don't think they've been on screen at the same time, so it still could have been very plausible.
Sure.
But yeah, he was. I'm just realizing that now.
And wow. You know what? For some reason, I must have been just picturing somebody else, but I definitely.
No, it's just we were thinking of Anthony Hopkins within the horror realm that he usually plays.
Yes, exactly.
That's dark character, and we don't think Odin, this lovable dad, who I'm sure back in the day was evil to some extent. It's dark.
He was kind of weird in those movies. I really think Odin was a weird duck in the grand scheme.
I wish we would have been able to see Odin around the holidays when they were.
Or
wreaking
just
havoc
fucking
and taking
Odin.
Absolutely.
Like he never really pulls. No. You know, that's a conversation for another time. There's some characters that I'm like, man, they really like built this character up, and I know that this character is extremely powerful, but we literally never see them like flex at all in the whole series or the show or whatever it is. Yeah, there's a lot of that in the MCU.
What did you think about the necklace? Like that being the token of.
I'm really glad you mentioned that.
The connection between him and Agnes.
Yes, and that's so smart because they got to signify. It was Agatha all along. Like you got to be like, oh my god! When I go back and look at these scenes, I knew this. It was right. It was staring me right in the face. And then that also ties well because she's a witch, and so there's, this is a hex thing, and so if anybody watches Supernatural, there's always a hex. There's always something somewhere that's like causing this to happen. And it was right in front of us the whole time. And so we spoke about this before, and I'm glad you brought it up because kind of going back and looking at some of this and looking at screenshots and stuff when they showed Pietro, when he showed up, the necklace was a great, douche accessory for his look, his 80s scumbag look that he did when he showed up. But then he's like in costume as the Flash, but he still has the stupid necklace on. And I was just thinking, like, every time I look at him, there's just something off here. And then I realized, it's this dumb fucking puka shell necklace thing that he has on his neck. And then for that to be the thing, I thought was really smart. We've talked, we're going to forever glow about this, but the attention to detail from MCU is so cool because you can go back and find this little nugget somewhere. I was actually talking to somebody yesterday about, I'm rewatching Game of Thrones right now. And when I first watched the Game of Thrones series, I had no context at all. I didn't read any of the books. I didn't know anything about Game of Thrones when I first watched it. And watching through it, a lot of these offhand references and little mentions to things that happened decades or centuries or just weeks before, like any of the actual show happens, was a little annoying, to be honest. I found it a little frustrating. And now, knowing that they're like planning like a prequel series and stuff, I go back and watch this stuff and they're describing events that took place or they're talking about people, Sir Podrick Agrane never got it. And I'm like, dude, I wonder if we get to see that. And so on the flip side, now that I'm spoiled by the MCU, every time there's a little thing or a little reference or a little not, everybody's picking it apart, but it's for good reason because there's something staring you right in the face and you're going to have, Mephisto. You're going to have, what's his name, from the Far From Home, show up in a sequel, like, years down the line and get mad because you yelled at, you, like, called his thing barf and, like, laughed at him and stuff. Just the little seeds that they like to lay, and then years later they're like, ha, ha, ha. And I thought this was a cool payoff and a good version of that because honestly, there's not much else in this series, specifically in the season, that you see at the beginning and then it has like a payoff at the end. We got a lot of misdirects. Like the beehive guy was so creepy in the first episode, and then you're like, oh, it's just some dude. It's not really a big thing. So for Pietro to just be Ralph Bone or whatever, but for the necklace to be staring you in the face, he's Ralph. My husband, Ralph, he's fucking Ralph. He's the Ralph that she keeps, like, jokingly refers to.
And the way they were able to build him up whenever in reality he just happened to be the guy who owned the house next door.
Yeah, he's just a failed actor that is just chilling in Jersey. Yeah, I love that.
I thought that was beautiful. I mean, it was pretty much closed the shut case on him, but I was expecting maybe like a throwdown between him and Spectrum,
Yeah, no, they definitely.
I thought there was gonna be like a confrontation first between both of them since she was locked in his house, and
yeah, they definitely like set it up to be something. Honestly, there's a lot about this ending here, the last two episodes, that feel simultaneously hella trolly, very trolly, but at the same time so well thought out, and the attention to detail is so meticulous, and they tell such a heartfelt. It's a really interesting balancing act that they've done here.
And honestly, think about this. How much lore is there around what we're doing right now? Leading up to this? No, there's tons out there with people theorizing like what could happen.
There's a lot.
Everybody breaking it down. So like for them to be cognizant of like, oh, we have everybody on edge right now trying to figure everything out. And we're going to give them little nuggets. And almost it's like a jab straight to us saying like, yeah, it's not headed that direction like you think it's going. It's actually headed this direction. But we're going to throw in this keys to like fake you out. So it was just beautifully crafted. As the episode was getting towards, the ending of the episode was very heartfelt. It was very thinking about mentally where she was at the point, knowing that Vision and the two kids are just figments that she created, and that they're going to be gone. She's got to make that ultimate choice after everything that she's gone through. Yeah, it was very. It was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking for sure.
There's such a wide perspective on what that you could take on this show, because in a way, at the end of the show, we've kind of come full circle, and not a whole lot has happened on the grand scale of things.
Absolutely.
But she had such a complete arc. You know what I mean? She came into this grieving, hurt, damaged, traumatized, and she comes out of it owning her experience and then wanting to learn and grow from who she is, truly realized who she really is. She's truly the Scarlet Witch.
Which I'm a little confused on as well, because, so, we reference back the original Salem 7, the witches back in, where they're trying to burn Agatha at the stake, right?
Yeah.
Those women. So, okay, we know that Wanda is a witch. Are witches truly mutants, or are they something completely different?
So, the Darkhold is from Chthon. Like, he literally, when he was being banished out of reality, because he predates like humanity in our universe, well, in the Marvel universe, and Gaia was like banishing him out of reality because he's just too evil and stuff. And in the process of doing that, he wrote the Darkhold, and it's like the analogy that I was listening to somebody try to explain from their perspective of reading the comics and stuff was, it's like the equivalent of like the One Ring.
Yeah.
So Sauron like pours all of his evil into it and stuff, and that's why it's such a enchanted, terrible thing, is like his spirit's kind of in it, right? The Darkhold is Chthon pouring all of his malice and evil and all this stuff into this book, and he wrote it on flesh originally, and then it like transmuted into a book at some point, as he was being banished into whatever fucking realm he's in. And so this book, I believe, is a big part of the source of power that we're dealing with, at least in this episode, in the show here, because Agnes and her mom, who I understand as a character, but I can't think of who the hell that is, practicing their magic probably got their understanding of it because they have to cast spells, they have to cast hexes, they have to cast this power.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
I don't necessarily think
ability.
that they're
Yeah.
exactly.
It was a learned ability because they had a coven, and they were the original Salem 7.
Yes.
Agatha's sucking everybody's power away, and that's part of the beautiful arc in this show where where Wanda is learning that she was born with these powers, where these women had to learn these powers, and that she's doing all this witchcraft without having to cast a spell.
Exactly.
She's just making it happen with her mind.
On autopilot.
Absolutely.
Right, was the joke was so that reference in this episode, Agnes, there was some scenes that were a little exposition-y, but I could tell that they were like, we got to throw this out. We got to get this information out somehow in this fucking episode. So she's just up there like, there's a whole dark thing about you in the book, and like she's just throwing, like doing like classic villain stuff, which is great, but it's also like, this is a little corny. But she says, you're more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme, as if Scarlet Witch knows who the fuck that is.
Exactly.
I don't really think she knows, because if you look at the interactions, she doesn't just hang out with
Strange.
Just like at some point, you know what I mean? She doesn't
even
Stephen
Hulk was
Strange.
surprised who that was whenever he showed up on the roof.
But Stephen Strange specifically was nobody.
Yeah.
You know, if you watch the movie, and I don't know about the comic origins specifically, but if it's anything like the movie, and a lot of these characters, even like in the history of the comics, Thor was like some guy with a stick, and then he was Thor also, or whatever. But then they like retconned it, and they were like, no, he was Thor. This was just his alter ego, or whatever. But like Stephen Strange was just a guy, right? And he learned to become Doctor Strange, and now he like achieved the mantle of Sorcerer Supreme. When Agnes says you're more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme, she's not even specifically talking about Doctor Strange, I don't think. She's just saying you are more powerful than this extremely powerful person that is known. It's a known person. So for the Scarlet Witch to be also a mantle is interesting, but for Wanda and her experience of the Scarlet Witch, and what I love about the MCU's interpretation of these characters, a lot like Ant-Man, right? So Ant-Man is, it's not just Scott Lang. like Ant-Man is a mantle. You know, he was this super guy for like 30 years or whatever, and then, you know, he hung it up, and now Scott Lang is Ant-Man. But for what we care about, Scott Lang's fucking Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Period. You know what I mean? And he could do things that like the previous Ant-Man had never attempted or like even accomplished before. So this Scarlet Witch and what they're setting her up to be is probably at this point like because the big question coming out of the Infinity Saga is how do you take Thanos and then not ratchet it up past that? Like how do you know what I mean? Like there's a concept in video games called feature creep, where I release a video game, and then the next video game has to have more features, and then the next video game has to have more features, and the next thing you know, you've just got this like fucking gargantuan, unwieldy thing that just doesn't make any sense, and you know it starts to kind of fall apart. So looking at how everything ramped up in the Infinity Saga with this new saga and this new phase in the MCU, how do you ratchet that up? Well, have your ambiguously good character be the most powerful character like ever, right? And so how do we deal with that? And that's, she's learning what that means, and now I guess we're just going to wait and see like what the fuck she's going to make of it. But I think that it's interesting that Agnes somehow recognizes how insanely powerful Wanda is, and her plan is just like, I'm going to take that from you. You know, like, oh yeah, okay. Sure you are. Like,
and then the simplicity in the art, kind of like in Strange's movie with, I learned those symbols, and now they're here on the hex.
Yeah,
and
you taught me this.
You taught me this.
Thanks.
In the most simple, like the way to dethrone Agnes and the level of power she had at that moment with, well, these are your spells, and I literally just copied and pasted them. Since you told me I'm a witch, and I've accepted that now through this little arc that we were dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah, incredible. Now, let me ask you this. The scene between Vision and White Vision, I thought was tremendous. You know, when Vision's like, I'm here to destroy the Vision. And he's like, well, you're the Vision. I'm a thought, a fragment of a memory. You know,
yeah,
and
it was almost like one of those like logic bombs for
yes.
a computer. Like, divide by 0.
I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
And then just the self-realization, it's like, okay, White Vision would be a more complete Vision if he has the memories. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I got you. Boom. Here's the upload.
Power cycle.
Yeah.
Let me just reboot you real quick so you can.
And then he bounces. What? Oh, man. Oh, and here's the thing.
Yeah.
In the comics, White Vision plays like this completely separate role. And at this point, I feel like this is a true wild card for everybody on that Marvel team that's moving forward, because he is now a wild card. There's no reiteration of him in this version that's in the comics anymore. No. Like, this is truly, they can do what they want with him.
We're off the reservation. You're absolutely right. That exchange, as you were referencing, is some of the best part of this episode. You know, there's a really, really great meme that I found on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen the Scott Pilgrim movie.
Yes.
Okay. So when he fights Dark Scott, but then they just come out of the room like talking to each other, and they're like going to hang out next week or whatever. Like, I saw that meme, and it was like Vision fights White Vision, and it's just them walking out like, all right, man, see you next week or whatever. That's exactly how it went, and I fucking love that. Yeah. Like, they did do the whole laser beam shit, fight shit, you know, Superman fight or whatever. But then they were like, wait a minute, we're in a library now.
Let's have a conversation.
Let's talk
like
about
civilized,
this, because I'm a little bit more British about this. And, you know, I thought that was wonderful. But as much as everybody's like, he could have stayed and did it, like, I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah,
because it would have been a little weird. I was like, okay, so what's he going to do? Like, come fuck up something? Like, is he going to stick around and then they're going to have a, you know, this is awkward. Like, I don't even know who you are. You know, like see bumping into your ex, but it's been 20 years, and you're like, all right, well, it's good seeing you. Bye.
Yeah.
You know, like, what is that? And so I'm glad that there was no exchange between him and her after the initial like fake out of, you know, I thought you'd be stronger or whatever. Like, that was kind of a funny little, like, intimidating role, and set the tone of, oh wow, this guy's like not even close. And then for him to just deuce out, I thought was interesting, but he deuced out in a way that really gave you a sense of like, he's going somewhere for a reason. I feel like we're going to see what reason, maybe soon, hopefully,
You think so?
in the next year or so.
Wow. Okay.
I wonder if he shows up for a glimpse in Falcon and Winter Soldier, just as like a nod to Sword, because as we talked about, like you got to assume that Sword is somehow who Falcon and Winter Soldier might be working for or something, like at some point in here, and so it could be a neat little like maybe he remembers something from when he was there.
I mean, at this point, he has all the memories leading up to his death. So he's got the complete history.
Yeah, what's that?
He knows that the government reconstructed him and that he was just an empty shell. They uploaded the memories. Okay.
Maybe from he's going to go pay his respects to his creator.
Yeah.
Because Tony died well after Vision died.
Yes. And I think with the ramifications set, allowing him to do so, you're right. He left for a specific reason, and moving forward, the decision by Marvel to let him do so that way, obviously this was pre-thought out way in advance. Yeah, and so with that in mind, where is he going to pop in? How is he going to pop in?
And how long are they going to let that be a question?
And yes, and like, what is his new arc, right? Because at this point now, the arc's been completed.
I like that
and it ended it beautifully, but now we're starting a new arc for him.
Like I get the basic gist of the introduction of White Vision in the comics, but I don't know where the fuck he goes from there.
He just does a West Coast Avengers thing on his own, and that dies off pretty soon.
Well, okay.
So I mean,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
And he does West Coast Avengers with a bunch of mutants. You know, and even in that canon, it's the reason Vision even loves Wanda is because one of the mutants loved Wanda, and they used that mutant's soul. Like he was the Jarvis programming
ability type thing.
They just downloaded his soul of sorts and put it into the sentient weapon.
Interesting.
And that's why Vision loves Wanda in the West Coast Avengers.
I saw some neat little shout outs in some like Easter egg videos that I watched. And one of them was people were trying to figure out how they were tracking Vision into the Hex, and they were tracking his vibranium, and he was listed as SW01, and the other Vision was listed as SW02. So they were both called Sentient Weapon 1 and Sentient Weapon 2. And I thought I was like, that's
I like that.
Yeah. So what else? Let's kind of wrap up the other. Not that Vision's a C tier part of this at all, but the last some of the other stuff aside from the main.
And just to wrap up Vision, I thought the last bit of monologue he had was beautiful. Him saying, I started off as a creation, and then I died, and then I was brought back as a memory. Like he was just talking about his.
Yeah, he was disembodied voice.
Yes,
and then he became this what his android, and then he became this that she made him,
and for him to end off, and he's like, I wonder what I'll be next.
Yeah.
For that, I thought that was like, especially knowing that he just do stuff. So I thought that was
pretty good Zen, like great moment.
Yeah,
of,
fantastic.
Just transitioning and not being super hung up on the end.
I thought that was phenomenal, and I thought that was really cool.
So speaking of that moment, that's the last time we see the kids for now.
Yes.
What do you think of how they handled? Not really explaining what the kids were, but it just being implied that, it mattered. So for example, in my head, I was like, I don't know why she did that. Well, I know why she did that, but I'm also like, I don't know if that mattered. Monica taking the bullets for the kids, in a way, kind of didn't matter because, they're not really kids, and also it seems like Wiccan had that under control because he neo'd that one bullet. So when they're doing the whole bits falling apart scenes, which everybody's kind of comparing to the art from the House of M comic, which is a really nice touch. But you just realize that just like Vision, they were manifested and created by her, but obviously not from memories and not from the Soul Stone, but maybe a little from the Soul Stone. I don't know. I don't know where those kids came from. There's rumors and theories that they were wandering souls or whatever. The whole line about "thank you for choosing me to be your mom" was supposed to, some people are like, that means something, and it's like, I hope it means something, because if not, that's a really fucking weird line. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's that's the only piece of this that's still confusing me today, for the fact that when those kids were babies, they one day, boom, they're not babies anymore, and then they're able to change on their own.
She could control
and
them,
she could not control them exactly. Yeah. So that it bothers me because she adds that line. Thank you for choosing me to be your mother. What? Wait, but you made these guys. What do you? I don't know. And even in the comics, it's still uncharted territory now at this point with that in the direction that they're headed.
In the comics, the whole them being parts of Mephisto.
Correct. Whether it's the hands or crystal shards of his soul, whatever it may be.
If Mephisto is in Multiverse of Madness or something, maybe we get an answer there. So the
if we break it down, though, right,
is really wrapped around the kids in a way that we could talk about that aspect of it. For her to hear Billy's voice and they're calling to her, do you feel like maybe that was... I mean, so one cool call out is during that sequence right at the end there, they play Doctor Strange's theme in the background. It's like tuned down and slowed down or whatever, but that's literally like set straight into. So obviously she's a big factor in this Doctor Strange movie, but Multiverse of Madness, spelling mom, is not a coincidence. Not at all. I am convinced that this entire movie is almost 100%, if not like 75%, about her and maybe her getting her kids and that setting up something or whatever.
I think it's a trap.
He's like helping. Do you think so?
I think it's setting up. Yeah, absolutely.
I did kind of feel like it was a bit sinister. That whole sequence was sinister, and so I wondered, okay, was this like alluding to, and for it to be a horror movie?
Absolutely, so. And I think somebody's setting her up, and I think talking about that the next one, that the Doctor Strange movie is going to be a horror movie. Yeah. What's more horrific than somebody playing with the fact that your kids that you created organically and that you had to kill, they had to get rid of, and then somebody using those kids to, oh man, that's just Rick terrifying. And Morty sequence,
the Rick and Morty sequence where she's trapped in the car and the car generates the cop's dead son and then like turns it back to goo and the cop is just like ready to kill himself. You don't know what I'm talking about, did you? Oh my god, there's a sequence.
And I've seen Rick and Morty, so
there's a sequence. All right, they're on another planet. It's the planet that's filled with sentient spiders.
Okay.
And I think they go off and do. They run off and do the. I don't think this is the same planet as the. This is when he goes in the car battery. So they spend the whole episode in the car battery in the universe, and then he finds out that they spent a pocket universe, so they go into that pocket universe and shit. So that's what's going on with them. But meanwhile, his sister, which I always forget her fucking name, is trapped inside the car, and the car is protecting her. And so cops show up because the car kills some people because they were like just trying to like carjack her or whatever. And so then the cops show up, and she's like, "You can't kill these guys." And she was like, "Okay, deploying non-lethal form of like deterrent or whatever." And it rolls out this capsule, and the capsule opens up, and this like goo boy stands up out of the capsule and it materializes as this cop's dead son. And the cop's like, "Oh my god, my boy!" And he's like hugging him, and then the cop the boy just melts back into goo in his hands, and he's just like, "Oh my god!" And she's in the car like, "Oh my god, what is happening?" And she's like, "You all have dead loved ones. I can return them and take them away from all of you." And you're just like, this is the darkest shit. So that's going to happen in Multiverse of Madness, basically, is what you're telling me.
I'm thinking maybe not so comedic. But yeah, man, I mean, that's just, it was dark. That was a dark scene, man. That was a really dark scene.
It's supposed to be unsettling, and there's so many great moments of that sequence, and it's not like a big, long thing, but there's so many aspects of it. The cabin in the middle of nowhere, Sam Raimi directed Evil Dead, and that cabin gave me super Evil Dead vibes.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Oh my god!
And I did. I got goosebumps when I saw it, and I was like, "Oh man!"
And
okay.
So a lot of the things about this post-credit sequence is people are alluding to the Doctor Strange asleep, but then his astral projection is like reading and studying and stuff.
Correct.
But nothing about this was astral projected. I feel like she created a sweatpants wearing version of herself to mope around the house.
Yes.
And somebody was saying, because somebody somewhere is probably trying to keep tabs on her.
Correct.
And that's all they see. Meanwhile, she's in there.
And she's got a secret portal to like this, kind of like with Agatha. When you went into the basement, it's a completely different world.
Probably. Yeah.
So I thought that was crazy, man.
I liked the call out that I saw in theories that she's in Sokovia. That cabin is in Sokovia. I think that would be nice. That she went back to Sokovia.
Full circle, absolutely. To close out the last chapter, introducing into this new chapter of she's the Scarlet Witch, no longer Wanda. Because I really do feel like after this, she gets done reading this book, she's not even going to want to be referred to as Wanda anymore.
So I
think she's really going to take up this darker side of the Scarlet Witch, and she's evolved at this point as a character where I don't know if we're going to see the old Wanda.
And the Scarlet Witch is an X-Men. I mean, she's like when I post House of M especially, all mutants kind of come together. Like Charles and I just completely blanked on Magneto's first name. The hell is Magneto's first name?
You got me.
Cool.
Yeah, Magneto.
Goes by Mag for short. Anyways, Magneto and Xavier are, they've always been begrudging buddies, but post House of M, the mutant population is so small that like Wanda and Vision fucking hates Wanda post House of M. He's like, dude, you're a fucking monster. Like, I can't stand you. He's always got something really, and I'm basing a lot of this also off my experience with AVX, because that's kind of like the culmination of what happened after House of M, and at the end of AVX, Wanda and Hope Summers repopulate the world with mutants. Like, they just start appearing. Like, there's this Spider-Man's like in China somewhere, and all of a sudden he's like trying to save this bus, and he's like, guys, this woman just turned into like a squid monster or whatever. He's like, are you guys seeing this? And then it's like reports of mutants all over the world again and stuff. So Wanda is an ally, but she definitely is considered one of the most infamous villains in a way in the history of X-Men. And I think for them to transition her into the Scarlet Witch this way is cool and all. And I think her and Strange will probably work together throughout the movie. Probably. But I think there's going to be a definitive moment somewhere upcoming. But what I'm trying to say is I don't think that happens before you introduce mutants and X-Men and stuff like that. Because I think them defeating her would be important.
I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, like looking at what we have coming, I don't see mutant, and especially since we really didn't see anything else hinting to...
No, we sure the fuck didn't.
I don't think we're going to see mutants until 2023.
Throughout the show, it was fun to speculate, holy shit, what if Nightmare Show actually... I'm such an ass. On Twitter, same thing. It's also called Troll. On Twitter, I put out my favorite part of, and this is well after the finale has been like out for a while. I'm not a spoiler. I'm a jackass like that. I don't like doing that. But after the end of Friday night, I put my favorite scene in WandaVision finale was when Mephisto, Nightmare, Chthon, Magneto, and somebody else, I can't remember who else, all sat down and played cards together. Like, I was just like...
You're terrible.
It's because everybody showed up. Because no one fucking showed
up.
Oh, Dr. Doom. I threw in Dr. Doom also. Because, a lot of people were hoping Reed Richards would show up, and that would introduce, like, the Fantastic Four. That guy was trying to tell me that Magneto was going to be in the fucking, finale and stuff. Like, I knew they were probably going to play it close to the chest, because as much as Disney and Marvel like to do, like, oh, what? Moments... They really pick their shots, and they don't do it that often. And when they do it, it's cool. But when you want them to do it, they're not going to do it.
Absolutely.
They're not going to do it.
And moving forward, I have a different set of expectations.
You should.
Because after this was the first huge one for Disney Plus on the MC. Because I know we've had, what's Captain America's wife's name?
Agent Carter.
Agent Carter,
yes.
right? We've had that one out.
Agent Carter, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yes.
Technically Inhumans was a Marvel product. You have the Netflix Marvel stuff like Daredevil and stuff like that. So like Agent Carter had some moments in it. The show, or not Agent Carter, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had some moments in it. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. specifically lined up their episode with the release of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, to have Hydra taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. happen in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also, which is like just the worst thing, because when your show is called Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then like halfway through your first or second season, they're like, oh, by the way, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't exist anymore, and you're like, well, how the fuck, it'd be like calling your movie, your show, the X-Men, and then it's like, oh, by the way, the X-Men's not the X-Men anymore. It's like, well, how the fuck am I going to make an X-Men show anymore? Like, how would I call this the X-Men?
Yeah.
You know? What you were saying.
No, and in this one, I feel like WandaVision is going to be, now moving forward, I feel like these Disney Plus shows are put on the map. They're taken way more seriously. This one was done to a level of excitement that the other ones I didn't feel like accomplished before. Now that we're post Infinity Wars Endgame, and we've got a lot more people tuned in than we had previously. WandaVision is huge. I feel like it was beautifully done. It accomplished a lot through the season, and now we're going to move into the Captain Falcon show.
Yeah.
Loki, and the rest of the TV shows. And now I feel like people are going to be tuned in at a higher level, at a more interested level, and they're going to be more invested. But
hey, fun fact I'd like to point out about the future of Disney Plus. So I got a notification on my phone yesterday. So I get Disney Plus through Verizon for free. However, I was informed via Gmail that they're raising the cost of Disney Plus by $1.
Okay.
Luckily, this doesn't affect me because I get it for free. But already, a year into Disney Plus, they're saying, okay, we're going to have to raise the price because now we're providing more value, right? We're making this more of a premium thing because we're about to have a whole lot more content with the amount of stuff they announced with Disney, with Star Wars. Just the sheer fucking, hey, we're going to have to make a spin-off Star Wars episode, or show, by the way, but, with just the amount of stuff coming for Disney Plus for
100%.
Star Wars. But the amount of stuff coming for Marvel, for Disney Plus definitely constitutes, if you were a casual fan and the hype here with WandaVision sucked you in, and you get even a whiff of like the amount of stuff coming here, you're absolutely going to stick around. I was going to talk about that timing-wise. So something I put on my Facebook was, honestly, to me, the most impressive thing about WandaVision as a whole was how they completely could not have predicted when they planned this out that there would be a pandemic and everyone would be quarantined at home. And this show mirrors that experience so much.
Yeah.
Even like leading up to, and then especially the Modern Family parody episode where she's like quarantining herself at home. And that seemed like such a funny, cute, quaint thing, I'm sure, when they wrote it. But it's like, yeah, you're quarantining at home. I don't blame you. Me too. I'm watching this show, quarantined at home. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's incredible. And then for the existence of them to be trapped in a bubble and living in a bubble, you can't travel. I mean, there's so many parallels to the human condition this year. And imagine if WandaVision came out like a year ago or 2 years ago or something like that. It just wouldn't. I think the timing of it is so perfect.
Interesting how it lines up.
Yeah, and they've talked about, like Elizabeth Olsen's talked about that in her interviews and stuff, how she's just like, we never would have imagined, which Elizabeth Olsen is literally on set shooting Doctor Strange right now.
That's incredible.
It's crazy.
Let me ask you this. Do you think in the next Cap and Winter Soldier Cap and Bucky.
Yeah. Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's because he's a new Cap now, supposedly. You know.
Well, Captain Falcon is. You say Captain Falcon, I was like, oh yeah, from Smash Bros.
Captain Falcon is like the hybrid. No. Do you think they will touch on the multiverse? Do you think there will be any? I feel like they might do some cute stuff to like talk about Wanda and like mention her. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they might even like touch it. I don't know.
There's got to be a reference to this event somehow
in a small way. But outside of that, do we see like the introduction of more? Because I mean, we are headed down that realm of like we're going to be introduced to a lot of big concepts.
Yeah,
so they're going to start setting this up with the rest of the shows.
You know, I was talking about that. I don't remember if we were on. We
touched on it lightly with Loki.
Well,
and what he's supposed to accomplish.
I don't think we were on the air when I was saying, what is the thread? Right? Yeah. What's the thread that pulls you through? The Infinity Stones pulled you through. The threat of Thanos pulled you through the Infinity Saga from movie to movie. When each movie felt maybe not as conjoined as the obvious setups of the Avengers. When you had like Phase 2 and Phase 3 where things were a little... You know, when you're watching Thor: The Dark World, you're like, man, this is like some big world-ending shit, and Thor's just out here by himself. This is super weird.
Yeah.
This feels disconnected from the rest of the universe, right? But And I think they did a poor job of, in that movie, that's the movie that gets beat up on a lot, but honestly that movie's pretty good when you go back and look at it, just from what it means, of setting up like, hey, the ether is actually the reality stone, and this is this, and this is it, you know what I mean? And you're like, oh shit, this is all ties together. But at the time, we kind of understood where it was supposed to be going. We have zero concept of where the fuck we're going right now. When somebody said the word Infinity Stone, like in phase 1, it was like, we're putting together a team. Oh shit, okay. And then the second anybody said Infinity Stone, you were like, oh, is this a joke or is this just an Easter egg? And then you realize, oh no, we're building to something. And then we did, and then we did it, and now it's over. And now we're like, so where are we now?
Yes.
Like, where are we going now? And that's why I keep mentioning AVX and I keep mentioning mutants, is because I think that, you know, this House of M homage, because it's absolutely not House of M, but it's definitely hugely influenced by it, obviously. This House of M setup here feels like a massive telegraphing of mutants. This is where we're going. We're going towards mutants. Something is going to happen with the X-Men and the mutants. And so to me, AVX, because you have the Avengers as a concept in the universe, and maybe we need to put a new Avengers together. Why? Maybe because of this weird wild card that is these mutants that are all of a sudden showing up, and we don't know what the fuck they want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So maybe AVX is more of like an introduction of the two of them meeting each other, beating each other up, and then being like, oh, we're actually bros. We're going to bro out, and let's fucking put down this Wanda chick because she's crazy now. Like, we don't know what the fuck's going on here. It really feels like the question with stuff like Hawkeye and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I always point at because they definitely seem like the least celestial versions of these programs. You know, you've got they've already forecasted Secret Invasion. That's going to be a show, I think. You've got Armor Wars, which you understand what that is, like War Machine and a bunch of some shit going on with armor. Like, I get that. I get Thor: Love and Thunder is going to have Mighty Thor, so I get that there's like an element there. Jane Foster is going to be involved. When you have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 having Thor in it, okay, so like it makes sense for me coming off of Endgame where they may be going or what they may be doing. But like, what's the through line?
Absolutely.
And to me, that's got to be mutants. And so I wonder if Falcon and the Winter Soldier has some type of mutant element in it, because otherwise,
I would hope so.
So when you think about like, what's the challenge with Falcon and the Winter Soldier? You want the stakes to be high, but these are not superheroes. These are not super soldiers. These are not Iron Man. Like, Falcon's good and everything. Winter Soldier is a little OP, but like, what are they going to be fighting?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if
you
it's,
think about it, Spider-Man gave them a pretty big run for their money.
Well, exactly.
So
you have,
and that's a brand new Spider-Man, like learning, like a kid just stumbling upon these, just kind of doing his thing, and he gave them quite a bit of run of their money.
Absolutely. And you have, and that's a great example of like that kind of puts them on the chart. Where do they land?
Yes.
And you have Baron what's his fuck, which we know is going to be in it.
Yeah.
The dude from Civil War. But I feel like that's probably an introductory thing. I
agree.
don't feel like that. God,
2 episodes in, it's done. I really do hope it's 2
episodes
episodes done.
Season, because I'm going to be like, all right, this is, I don't know.
I really want to see him after the second. I'm not sorry, after the second episode, I want him to be done.
I hope that whatever the through line is, we get a hint of in this. I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier has some big ass shoes to fill.
100%.
But man, they could not have started with a better, more apt setup as being like trapped in a bubble. The concept of time being really weird.
Yes.
Right? So like during this whole pandemic, time has been really fucking weird for people. And so for them to jump through the decades and stuff like that is pretty cool. What did you think of how they handled the wrapping up the whole sword thing, Darcy just fucking vanishing, Monica Rambeau getting summoned, and Jimmy Woo kind of being there, I guess maybe being promoted or something.
Yeah.
They were like, Authority looks good on you. I'm like, okay, so I know Jimmy's the Authority because he was here first, but like, did he get promoted off set and we didn't realize it?
I thought it was tastefully done. They gave them their shine as far as like, this is where they're at.
A lot
now,
of people
boom.
feel they got underserved. Do you feel like they got underserved, or do you think they made do with
I
what they
thought it was
could, or-
tasteful just because there's a lot going on that they had to address.
I agree.
It's really hard to
There's
give them
so much
shine whenever we have a
focus.
really huge moment
Yeah.
going on, and the way they were able to capture that huge moment for me, was way more important than the shine, because we are at this point setting them up to be key player, some sort of key level player in the future. Yeah. So they're good.
The fact that we're in the show at all, to me, is pretty cool.
Yes.
And so the amount of...
adds a lot of more human element to the
dialogue
team.
And like seeing...
having good buddies on the team that we can see and bring that humor and that comical aspect in the future. But, talking about players in this universe, we know what's coming out for the rest of the year and even next year. One of the key players that really doesn't have anything going for him, and we don't know where he sits in all of this.
If you say who I think you're about to say, I'm going to flip this fucking table over and walk out.
Hulk.
I'm so mad!
Yeah, man.
I'm so mad about Hulk, dude. They have treated him like shit.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It's very unsettling.
Dude,
it's very unsettling.
Bruce Banner got screwed in the MCU. Oh my fucking God.
Even for that actor, that where he's standing right now, I'm like,
dude.
Bro, like, what? Like, so you are the amount of power he has and what he's served in the comics, like...
dude.
And I don't know. And I'm curious, like, what in the world are we doing here? And I mean, he tried to talk it off in interviews saying, like, well, my arc was in all these other little movies as a co-star. I'm like, no, bro. No.
Sure. No, you're absolutely right that he is not something you can just ignore. You can't ignore the Hulk. So... I'm going to keep harping on this because it's like the only fucking thing I read lately. AVX has a really great moment with the Hulk. Near the end, it's actually... so they go through all this shit where these phoenixes are just wrecking house and it's coming down to the wire, right? And they've already had the Avengers clash with the X-Men. It's already hit this like global scale. And near the end of the whole story... Cap goes out to the desert and he's just standing on the edge of like a cliff and he's talking to the air. He's talking to nothing. You don't see him. You don't see who he's talking to. And he says, I wouldn't come to you if it wasn't really bad. And he makes this like very heartfelt, we butt heads and blah, blah, blah. And I know, and I respect your space and we try to keep you out of this. And I didn't want to pull you in. And I know you don't want to do your thing unless it's for a good reason, blah, blah. But we need you. And then it's just one panel of like Hulk saying like Hulk smash for you or whatever. Like, and it's a big moment because he's like, that's how much of a fucking in case of emergency break glass the Incredible Hulk is. You don't just sideline the Hulk. Get the fuck out of here.
And then what's crazy too is that at this point, like, he is made peace with the Hulk side. They are one.
He's smart Hulk, sure. Yeah.
So he's sitting there as a loaded weapon.
Yeah.
And I mean, a huge weapon. It's like they're literally putting this ginormous weapon on the table with all these other little weapons around and saying, we're not going to touch on that weapon, though.
The only other being to wield the Infinity Gauntlet live. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The only other being to wield the Infinity Gauntlet, do a snap, and fucking live through it.
And if we saw what it did to Thanos, like, think about how screwed his arm up, and I mean, to know that Hulk went through the same experience.
Hulk had a fucking sling at Tony's funeral. The Incredible Hulk had his arm in a sling. What the fuck? So
we have a Thanos level player,
just
sitting on the team on the sideline on the bench.
Exactly.
Ridiculous.
What the fuck?
What I do know is that
you gave me a little nod about She-Hulk, and that's the only thing I could bring up.
Just a little bit more back in on Hulk. I did confirm Hulk is owned by Universal. So is She-Hulk, Namor, and a lot of other characters.
So movie rights to Hulk
can be refused. Yeah, can be refused to. Universal can refuse those as many times they want to, and he can only be part of them.
So does that mean that Disney, i.e. Marvel, have been doing deals with Universal every time the Hulk's in a movie? Because that's what I've been wondering about for a while. Because obviously that's what they did for Spider-Man to be in these movies.
But with Spider-Man, they cut really good deals. I can't imagine Universal not wanting to cut in a deal that would make them more money.
The Hulk has had terrible history in film.
No, I know.
Lou Ferrigno's show is legendary, but I mean, those shows weren't exactly making anybody money.
Yeah.
The Eric Bana movie was a fucking garbage pile. The 2008 Hulk movie didn't really blow up the way that Iron Man did, and it's obvious. When you look online, I mean, shit, man. Like, you're absolutely right, because when you look on Disney Plus, the Hulk movie's not on there.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody was like, wait, what? Yeah, that's not fucking on there. And it's not because it's like, you know, when Disney Plus first launched, you couldn't watch everything because there were still Netflix deals and stuff that needed to run out, and then, you know, Thor Ragnarok would be there later, or Endgame would show up later after it runs its time or whatever. But I don't think the Hulk movie is going to be on Disney Plus anytime soon, and that's shitty. That's a shitty reason for not having the Hulk. Like, dude, just fucking spend the money because, oh my God, why don't we have more Hulk? Like,
and I wonder if it's just it's a matter of, like, the Universal wants big money for those movies because they worked out a deal for She-Hulk, and that's owned by Universal. Namor is owned by Universal.
Yeah.
So, I get it. Hulk is this huge level superstar, but at the same time, with Universal knowing that, I mean, anybody on that team, I don't know. I still feel like it's in their best interest to work out a deal because that will make them good amount of money. But I honestly, through this phase and the next phase, I don't see that happening. I mean, maybe phase 6 once we get there, but it's sad. It's sad because we're going to continue to see this crappy mini arc of Hulk. And honestly, for everything that they've done so well, the Hulk aspect of this has been done really bad. Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok was the only piece of it that I was like, wow, he finally gets to shine.
Yeah. And you know what? He was like struggling half that movie as Bruce, which was a little annoying, but a good job of like setting. And in that set, dude, can you imagine if imagine if Thor Ragnarok didn't happen and then Infinity War just starts off and the Hulk gets his ass handed to him and you're like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is happening? So, I mean, at least they set a reasoning. Well, they tried to thinly put like a reason as to why Hulk couldn't smash and go toe-to-toe with Thor, or with Thanos, and then that's why Loki dies. And then, like, you know, him being fucking traveled across space and time to get to Earth to warn about Thanos, and then that trauma keeping him from hulking out and having to be in the Hulkbuster armor and stuff. Like, man... The Hulk makes me mad, but I absolutely agree that a lot of the stuff they did with the Hulk, like in Age of Ultron, you know, the sun's getting low, buddy, blah, blah, like a lot of stuff they did with Hulk in the original Avengers movie, I thought was really well done. You know, that sequence of him chasing her through the helicarrier and just tearing it up is still to this day such a fucking iconic scene.
Absolutely,
and.
Yeah, I really do believe they got sloppy with Endgame.
Yeah.
And leading up to them, even in Infinity, I agree, but that was one of the pieces that I wish they wouldn't have dropped off. They wouldn't have dropped the ball because I feel like he needed another, like, I'm going to kick Thanos' ass for a little bit before I focus on another thing. Scene during Infinity War, you know, I don't know. I just wanted to see, in Endgame, I wanted him to see him get his revenge. Like, just throw him around at least. I don't know. Maybe Hulk smash.
Do you know what one of the ideas was for Hulk between Infinity War and Endgame? This is how fucking dumb they had the Hulk. I don't think they understand. I don't think the people in the MCU that were writing stuff for Infinity War and Endgame understood what the fuck to do with him. So his outfit, his smart Hulk, like, in Endgame costume has an H, right? It's like this real subtle... Oh, look, an H for Hulk. Okay, that's not necessary, but all right. That is left over from designs where, for a minute, they wanted Bruce Banner to embrace the Hulk, and he becomes this, like, let me save your cat from a tree fucking superhero. And he has, like, a bright costume with a cape and shit. That's one of the ideas they had between, like, they were trying to figure out what did our people do between, you know, what subtle stuff can we put as a reference as to what the fuck's been up for the last 5 years between Infinity War and Endgame? That's an idea somebody had.
Wow.
What the fuck?
What are we doing?
Like, what the fuck, man?
I get
Making him a smart Hulk, cool, neat. That was a neat idea. I appreciate that. But, like, you had Cho. You could have brought Amadeus Cho in here. Like, you could have done, Endgame could have had, like, Scar and Red Hulk and Amadeus Cho and, like, all these, like, little Hulklings and stuff, like, and then you'd be like, what the fuck happened here? And then that could be, like, a film that they could do down the line that this is what took place between Infinity War and Endgame. Because that's a fucking gold mine that you could mine whenever the hell you want. It's just a side story of, oh, by the way, here's something that happened in these 5 years between these two movies.
I'm afraid that as we move through these next year to 2 years, that they may give us what we've been wanting in a terrible presentation.
Sure.
So glimpses through a multiverse, and honestly, with him, it's one of those characters where it's going to bother me because I'm like, you can do that with any of the other characters. Do that with any other one because they've had enough time to shine because you have the rights to do movies. With him, moving forward, when you really do make justice of what his character is or who he is.
One thing that I will give the MCU that they have, for the most part, and Hulk's a really good example of them trying so hard to move these mega pieces around this board. So, for example, with WandaVision, where the hell is Strange? Where the hell are the people that would see this going on and show up and be like, the fuck? You know what I mean? Yeah. And we're going to hear that. We're going to find out what the fuck happened. But the Hulk is a really good example of a piece that you need to be careful where you position because you could break it. Like I've talked about this in the past. There's certain characters and there's certain properties and just things that you gotta handle carefully. So, for example, the longest time I go back to day one with Halo, and I think the biggest challenge around a Halo movie is the elephant in the room is Master Chief, who is a character. He's not like Gordon Freeman, from Half-Life. He's not just some faceless. Well, Gordon Freeman's not faceless, but he literally never speaks, so he has no voice. He's not just a visage for the player to inhabit. He is a real character, but once you get him in the room, the whole story is about him. He's the Jesus in the room. Like, everything else revolves around this, right? And if you're going to write a good movie or a good story or whatever, you can't have this Superman, which is another reason why Superman movies are really hard to make, is because you have this all-powerful thing. How the fuck do you make this compelling? How do you make this story compelling? And with the Hulk...
And realistic as well, right? Yeah.
Yes.
You're right.
And with the Hulk, the way you make it compelling is you spend more time on Bruce Banner and analyzing the human element and the relatable aspects of this. And then, what is the Hulk? The Hulk represents rage and fury.
So do you feel like it was a cop-out making him a smart Hulk?
I think they painted themselves into a corner making him smart Hulk because what's the whole point of Hulk? The hulking out part of Hulk is the point of Hulk. And honestly, you can de-smart Hulk if you ever want to. You can fucking trigger him, or somebody can cast a spell, or fucking you could put him into enough pain that he loses that control, and then he
found peace between both, and he could easily lose it. And
exactly.
At that point, then we have more artistic liberty. But I felt like it was a cop out, and it was a necessary cop out because of the corner that they painted themselves in. And it was just kind of force-fed to us that, he's in the restaurant eating, hey, what's up, guys? Let me take an autograph, take a picture.
And the Hulk is such a great example of a character that's really hard to write a movie about. Same thing. So, that's always been my thought about, Godzilla. What's the whole trick to Godzilla? He's going to climb a building at some point. He's not a one-trick pony, but there's kind of already an expectation there.
Yeah.
So that's why you don't see a Terminator TV series, which was terrible. Because you're just like, all right, well, we did the Terminator thing. What's the next episode? Terminator's still chasing after us. What's the next episode? Hey, guess what? The Terminator, he's chasing after us. Because that's what the fucking Terminator does. He chases after you. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so with the Hulk, what's the Hulk do? Well, he hulks out, and he's got girlfriend. I don't know what... So you have to be careful with him. He's a good looming force and threat, but as a character or as a subject of a thing, it's hard. It's really hard to write that. And so that's why I mentioned Scar and stuff like that, is when you look into Hulk stories, you're looking so far past the, threat on Earth. So that's why World War Hulk works so well, is because you put him on a whole different planet where everybody's really fucking strong.
Absolutely.
And that's why, with Superman, when he's at home, and the bad guys are just bad guys, it's not that compelling. But then when you bring somebody who can beat the shit out of Superman, it's risky because now you're breaking the rules. I thought you told me Superman was the most powerful being of all time. Why is this guy kicking his ass? well, now I got to come up with this dumb reason.
Yeah.
So when you have the Hulk getting his ass kicked, you're like, I don't know. Hold on, wait a minute here. You told me the Hulk is the most strongest character of all time. So that's when it gets dangerous because you risk breaking the character, and so he's good to have as a again, in case of emergency, break glass. Like that moment where Cap shows up and says, "Look, I don't want to do this, but we're going to need your help." That's a great use of the Hulk.
Yeah.
But making a whole story about the Hulk is hard. It's not great. It's not as compelling because he's always on. He's always all the way up there unless you make it a Bruce Banner story. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So that's WandaVision. No, just kidding.
No, so let's get our last thoughts on WandaVision and we'll wrap this up. So I'm definitely going to go back and binge through it.
Episode after episode. Yes, yeah, thank you.
Just because that's going to allow me to see it as a whole product, see it in continuity without having to wait for these pauses.
Which I think, as a whole product, it's one of the best things that the MCU's ever done.
Wow, yeah.
It's definitely top 10, top 5, MCU products.
Top 3 TV shows they've ever.
Well, TV shows.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
for
their TV show. Yeah, they're honestly number one. Number one. Yeah, out of everything they've created in the TV aspect, I think it's
Marvel's
beautiful show. But their movies are great. Yeah, 100%. They've created too much content, but this TV show, this series, was beautifully crafted. Our expectations are going really high going into the next one, and I'm excited to watch it all again and kind of appreciate it from that level. But I thought that every episode really served its purpose of giving us a good intro and an end to that specific episode that led us into another episode.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
as a standalone product, I think if you watch it start to finish, it's so dedicated to its style and to its plan and to the pace and the destination of where we're supposed to be going, where you're supposed to want to go. You know, we love to theorize and pull all of our references to all the things that we think could or maybe or whatever. But if you go into this not knowing a fucking thing about who Wanda Maximoff is or why I even care about Vision or what all this is, and you just literally take all the information you gain from the show, it still works and it's really, really cool. You know, Darcy showing up and explaining why Vision matters so much to Wanda and why keeping this existence, this fragile thing that she's trying to hold together is so important is a great scene, because if I don't know that, because I'm just watching this show because I like Jimmy Kimmel or whatever, then it works. And so they filled in all the gaps, they filled in all the holes without it being more than just like, hey, here's a fun side thing. You know what I mean? Without it being so much of a spin-off or a epilogue to Endgame or a prequel or a prologue to Multiverse of Madness, it still stands as alone.
It was able to give us an origin story without it truly being like an origin story.
Yeah, without the like, and then she flew off into the distance and did Wanda stuff, and you're like, wait, what? For it to tell that story. And then you even get, you're right, that conversation that they have with the boys and her speech and everything, it's not closure, but it's her closure. It's not closure as me as a huge Marvel fan going like, wait, what about these characters? What are we going to get? But if you're watching the show and you're like, where the fuck did these babies come from? And then you see it's like, oh, she created them. And then at the end, she's like, we'll all still forever be a family. No one can take that away from us. We love you and blah, blah, blah. You're like, oh, that's okay. Yeah. So she's at peace with her own love of Vision and what that represented to her. As it's like a bad breakup. You're like, all right, well, I love that person. I love that time and I appreciate it, but I have to let it go and move on. And she has that closure. And then at the end, she's doing self-discovery. She's doing self-care and self-love. You know what I mean? And it has that whole loop closed. And I thought that was really cool. Yeah. One last thing about the actual episode. Do you think we ever see Agatha Harkness again? Because, boy, she's just chilling in Westview, brainwashed, but definitely not on a leash or anything.
I thought that was great.
I thought that was weird.
No, I thought that was great because, so in WandaVision's, the comic book canon,
she
is a mentor. She becomes a mentor.
Sure.
So
Which
I could
she
easily
did. You know, she taught her how to do the hex, and she was like, "Thanks for that lesson." That was
gave her origins on witches in general.
Yeah,
took her back to that
here's
point
the dark hole.
Yeah.
Here's all the stuff you need.
Explain the book.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's pretty funny because Agatha shows up and she's like, "I want to be this being. Look at this," and Wanda's like, "Oh yeah, I can do that," and then just takes all of her toys from her and kicks her down and says, "Like, you stay here. I'm gonna go."
I see her like. Possibly in Doctor Strange, we see Agatha again whenever she needs some help. She needs help answering a few questions. Agatha at this point serves as a historian. She's lived a long time.
So you think we see in the future at some point Wanda show up and boop boop like just push the button to bring Agatha back and be like, "Hey, I need to know what's up with who's Mephisto?" And then she like gives you a dialogue or a bump of just like, "Here's some information," and then she goes, boop, boop, "Okay, you're back into Agnes mode, and I'm gonna come back later."
What I think's so great about Agatha at this point, also just the talent that actress is. I see her coming back as a mentor, her being under the watch of Scarlet Witch and saying like, "Act right, or you know what's gonna happen." And so she might even force her to be like on the good, like the villain turning good. We're gonna see that arc for her of turning good, and then just being a mentor to Wanda and just being there to help and assist in any capacity. Yeah.
So Agnes is kind of a Loki type situation. Yeah, no, I could see that. I'd like that. Yeah.
What do you think of the outfit? The new look for Scarlet?
Oh, I thought it was fucking dope.
I thought it was
But
incredible.
you know what? For some reason, her hair was my favorite part. I was like, oh shit, look, crinkly hair.
Yeah. Not so clean, just like this. Yeah. You know, she's asserting who she is.
It gave a great visual nod to the raw power that was there. It was like, this bitch is so powerful, she doesn't even have time to fucking like
mess with her hair
and shit. What did you think of the Magneto nod in the middle of the? So if you look in the center of her crown, it's basically the Magneto helmet.
I thought that was incredible. Yeah, I thought that was great.
I like it, man. I don't. A lot of people wonder if we're gonna see a season 2 or another like group of like the boys and Vision and Wanda facing off and doing their Incredibles pose again and stuff. And I don't really think that that's going to happen. I think that the existence of that situation has now come and gone.
Yes. And
we may see these characters again, but not these characters. Like, not these versions of these characters.
Well, in the specific situation,
progress forward.
It's a complete wrap-up.
Yeah.
But the next season that we're heading into, I could easily see that being multiple seasons. Because they're on the more human level aspect, kind of like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They deal with more human level crime. Yeah, the next show that's coming, I could see that easily being a multiple season because it makes sense. For this one, it doesn't.
Kevin Feige's conversation about the future of shows and whether or not shows will have futures to them, he made it sound like that was a case-by-case approach. And yeah, sure, Falcon and the Winter Soldier definitely feels like it's got to answer some questions, but if their buddy cop vibe works,
they can do it.
They could keep doing that. I don't see why they wouldn't.
It could help us fill in some gaps too along the way.
Hawkeye definitely seems like it's setting up something on purpose, and I definitely wouldn't be surprised if Jeremy Renner's character dies at the end of it.
Yeah, and I see that one being a one thing in
kinda, yeah, because the whole point is to introduce, the new Hawkeye. Like to introduce, I don't remember her character's name or her, but it's a very specific thing. So that definitely feels like Hawkeye feels like a super obvious layup to Young Avengers.
Absolutely.
And having Wiccan and Speed in this is a pretty obvious nod to a Young Avengers eventually thing. And I think the Young Avengers, or whether or not they're going to call it like New Avengers or what they're going to do, just makes sense with my fucking I'm just going to will this into existence AVX situation where like some form of the Avengers is going to happen eventually, and they're going to have to tussle with X-Men somehow in like a throwback to whenever Batman vs. Superman, Captain America Civil War, and the Fast and Furious where everybody went up against Dom all in the same year. Oh, and the Transformers, fucking everybody fought Optimus Prime. Like that all happened in the same fucking year.
It's crazy.
And it was so stupid that everybody was like, hey, let's do, and RoboCop versus Terminator, do we have time for that? No, we don't have time for that. Oh, okay, let's do that next time. Like just that's going to happen.
Yeah, I see Hawkeye kind of like with Wanda, wrapping up after the first one. I do see.
And that being it.
I see Loki doing. I feel like that can be multiple, and that's going to be incredible.
If that was an ongoing show, I'm going to be so
great.
excited.
Yeah, I'm super excited. But man, I've enjoyed our time today. I hope you guys listening have enjoyed.
Yeah.
This is not the last time you guys are going to hear us. We've got a lot of great content that is coming out this year, and we're planning covering it all. We're also going to venture out into outside of Marvel, so that will be fun. Again, follow, subscribe. We have a YouTube channel. We have a Facebook presence. We have a site with under Podbean where we are hosted. Our name is Marvel Chat University. Subscribe and follow. Drew, thank you, man. It's been great.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys soon.